here's why backcapping with 27 people in RAAS is not a very good idea. So we'll go over a couple quick examples. I'm going to use squad maps here to kind of illustrate my point. And we'll get into why sometimes capping fast is important, but most of the time it's really not. So before we get into that, let's cover a couple key concepts just to make sure we're all on the same page here. So one of the key components of squad that I've learned after about 4,000 hours in the game at this point is that map control is the key way you win games with squad. So it's not just about getting on the point, it's about getting on the point and controlling the area around it, controlling the obvious attack angles, whether you're on attack or defense. Let's say if you're defending Fruit Farm, you need to control this forest, you need to control this area, you need to control this back area. That is how you actually defend Fruit Farm. If you sit in this area of Fruit Farm in the cap zone, you're not going to successfully defend it. I'm sure if you've played enough games, you've seen this happen. If you sit directly on the flag, you will not be successful in defending it. So that's one of the key concepts we're going to go over. And the other kind of more statistical idea is just going over what flag captures give you. So a neutral flag capture, one that neither team has captured before, gives you 20 tickets. A flag that you capture from the enemy gives you 60 tickets. Keep that nugget of information in your brain for now, and we'll come back to that a little bit later. So let's get to the main point. When is capturing with 27 people good? And when is capturing with 27 people bad? So you would think the general concept would be, okay, so if I capture my flags faster, then we can capture more flags faster, and we can capture a bunch of flags, and capturing flags, and then you win the game because the game's about capturing flags, right? Well, kind of, but mostly not. So squad isn't really a game, and RAAS isn't really a game mode about capturing flags necessarily. Squad is a game about winning by tickets. You win everything by tickets. Whether those tickets come from capturing flags, whether they come from taking enemy flags, whether they come from destroying enemy assets, whether they come from destroying vehicles, killing infantry, destroying radios. Those are the ways you win games in squad. So it's not just about making as many colorful points turn blue on your map as possible. It's about doing that in a manner that's ticket efficient. So sometimes capturing fewer flags is the goal. Sometimes you want to let the enemy capture the neutral flags because, as we said before, neutral flag captures are only worth 20 tickets. So you could let the enemy capture flags for 20 tickets and then take them back for 60. Therefore, if you take a flag from an enemy, you are getting net 40 tickets. That's a huge amount of tickets, really. That's 2 full radio deaths. That's 4 IFVs. That's 40 infantry deaths. That's like a high amount of deaths for one entire infantry squad throughout the course of the game. That is how you use flags to win games. It's not just by capturing in the first place and holding on to them. It's by retaining your flags and capturing ones from the enemy. So how does cap speed factor into that, right? So basically what that tells us, that general theory of the game tells us that the capture speed of the flag is actually not that critical to getting the tickets from the flag. Whether you cap it with 5 chevrons with 27 people, or you cap it with 1 chevron with 1 person, you're still getting 20 tickets from a neutral flag or 60 tickets from a enemy flag, right? So therefore, we have to think, okay, so what's the most ticket efficient way to use the 50 players on our team? Is it maximizing the chevrons on a flag that we're going to capture no matter what, if we have, tons of time to do so? Well, maybe it's not. Maybe using those infantry to control the area on the flag, fighting ticket efficiently with more numbers than the enemy, which, lets your infantry fight better, gives you higher kill-death ratios, lets your medics work more, allows your vehicles to operate more efficiently, allows you to capture enemy radios. So, if you're off the cap here, let's say you're defending Fruit Farm again, right? You can capture Fruit Farm with 27 people on the flag, right? Or you can capture Fruit Farm with one person on the flag and have 26 people out here and here and here. And what happens when the enemy drives a Logi into here while you're capturing the flag, thinking it's open because, they think, oh, they're capturing the flag, their team is here. And let's say you have a full 9-man out here. That means you're getting that Logi. You're getting 5 tickets from the Logi. If they place down a radio, you're getting 20, so you're 25 tickets, plus maybe an enemy squad that's in there. So let's say 6 to 9 tickets on average for infantry squads. That means that delaying your flag capture slightly for tickets that you're going to get no matter what, because you have the map control on the flag, is actually netting you more tickets overall. And this is how teams with better map control end up winning by large amounts. It's not because they're capturing flags just in a row as quickly as possible. It's because they're capturing flags and using their assets more efficiently and denying the enemy from doing the same. So let's just look at some flag layouts and, game out when capturing fast is useful. So you might be tempted to say, okay, so I need to capture flags to know where I need to go in RAAS, right? There's fog. You can't see where any of these middle flags are. You only know where these, let's say you're team 1, you only know where these flags with the 1s are, right? So what kind of information does that give you about where you need to go? Don't you need to capture the flags as quickly as possible to know where you need to establish map control? Well, let's look at the lanes and see what it tells us. So if we click on Western Spy Farm, we actually see that that's not the case at all. So what does this tell us? That means that this plus 20 tickets, we can capture at whatever speed we really want to, because we know that we have to establish map control in this area around the middle flag, and maybe optionally, if we want to rush, we could go in this area or this area. So what that's really telling us is that we need to go here. Your team needs to go here. If you send 27 people here and the enemy gets Tactical Co-op as their first flag, and the enemy sends one person here and 27 people here, you now are no longer going to get this flag. You're no longer going to get that flag. And the enemy could be up 40 tickets and neutral flag caps on you and have massive map control that prevents you from recapturing their flags that you just captured. And now you're stuck on Boar Hunters Club in a mile of hurt, having a bad time, losing the game, right? So we don't want to do that. So that means if we get Western Spy Farm as our first point as Team 1, that means we're sending, 1 to 3 people to Western Spy, maybe a couple to Boar Hunters, and then the entire rest of the team is going in this area right here. So this is a circumstance where capping with 27 people is actually one of the worst things you can do for your team. Now let's look at some other examples. So sometimes from the first cap, you don't actually know where to go. Russian Outpost, if Russian Outpost is your first flag as Team 1, is an example of that. There's 2 potential major lanes that you could end up in. You could end up in this central lane. You could end up in this northwest lane, right? So this is an example of where capturing Russian Outpost quickly actually does give you some useful information, right? So at this point, it's a bit of a trade-off. So you only have 2 main areas that you want to establish map control. So really, you could just kind of flip a coin. You see here the odds are 50-50 for either lane. You could just kind of flip a coin and decide to send the rest of your team here. Just capture as you would if the flag had been Western Spy Farm, and 1 to 3 people on here, and they just go here. They just capture slowly, but you have full map control of the area, so you know you're going to get those flags in advance. You're playing ticket positive, right? That's how you win games. However, you could lose the coin toss. It could end up going up here, right? So you don't want that to happen, because then you'd have to reposition and you have to give up all this map control that you had previously down here, and then you basically wasted amounts of time doing whatever this was if the flags end up going to Boar Hunters Club and it goes up here anyways. So this is a case where maybe capturing fast on Russian Outpost isn't such a bad idea. Now, do you want to do it with 27 people, Probably not. So the issue with 27 people, that's 3 full infantry squads. If you have 3 full infantry squads here, that means you are now, instead of being able to probe and get a little bit of map control in the other area, this means if you have 3 infantry squads here, that means you basically have no map control. And if the enemy sends only maybe 1 squad, their equivalent cap would be, they don't actually have one exactly. Let's say if they had Akeem Central and they had this set, so they only think it might be here or here. If the enemy team sends a 9-man here and sends a 9-man here and sends a 9-man here, but you have Russian outpost and you have 27 people here and nobody here and nobody here and definitely nobody here, then what that means is that the enemy has a massive advantage in early map control over you. And that's very easy to translate into a massive advantage in map control throughout the rest of the game. So that's something you really need to be aware of when deciding how quickly to capture. So technically, yes, if your first point is Russian outpost, it is good to capture this flag somewhat quickly. However, is it worth it to capture it with 27 people? I think the answer here is pretty succinctly no. So maybe your best option here is to send 1 squad to Russian outpost and, send those squads out to probe in these areas, and then, pick them up and relocate once you know whether it's Boar Hunters Club, which lets you know it's up here, or Igor's, which lets you know it's down here. So what does this tell us about what our optimal strategy is and what that change for 27-man backcaps actually did for us in the game, right? So our previous maximum backcap speed before I believe it came out at 8.1, that changed to the backcap speed. Before that change, the maximum cap speed was with 8 people, right? So as we see here from this example, whether the maximum cap speed is with 8 people or with 27 people doesn't actually change the calculus of how you play the game at all. In fact, all it's really doing is incentivizing you to play this style where you stack a whole bunch of people on one cap zone, you delay your own rollout, you delay your ability to get map control over important key areas that you may already know some information about. So really, is that being a net benefit to your team? Should you not rather leave 1 squad here and move some people out to areas that are potentially relevant? Move them here, right? So I hope that kind of brings home the reasoning as to why capping with a whole bunch of people just to get a little bit faster flags isn't actually helping you very much. And I hope you can take this information into your games and public servers and apply it and be a better SL through this process.